The Hellboy reboot did not receive the warm welcome the franchise expected. Thus, a sequel is nowhere near happening as of right now. Nevertheless, we are going to take a first look and tell you everything we know so far about how things are standing right now. What are the chances of a sequel, and under what conditions? But also, what the lead actor David Harbour of the reboot movie has to say about a potential sequel sometime in the future. Enjoy. Introduction.
In the absence of light.
Based on the popular series by Dark Horse Comics, Hellboy tells the tale of a baby demon destined to bring about the end of the world, but also the one who is raised by humanity to be the first line of defense against the supernatural. The Hellboy comics were already adapted for 2 movies previous to the reboot that came out in 2019. The 2 movies were directed by Guillermo del Toro and were moderately successful, developing a devout cult of followers. However, with the reboot taken on by the creator of Hellboy himself, Mike Mignola, decided to play a more active role in the cinematic side of things, showing more involvement in the development process and a story that was taken directly from the original comics. Thus, hopes were high that the new Hellboy movie might be somewhat of a start of a successful franchise, akin to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sadly, those hopes crumbled for Hellboy 2, as the first movie was a lackluster at the box office, while also receiving an overwhelmingly negative response from the critics and audiences alike. Despite all this, the movie ended with potential avenues for a follow-up film, or even 2. Putting aside the wide variety of stories from the comics that's just waiting to be adapted, next we will tell you everything we know about a potential Hellboy sequel. Hellboy's ending sets up a sequel. The final scene of the movie introduces the character of Abe Sapien, a fishman who was a major character in the BPRD comics and Guillermo del Toro's 2 Hellboy movies. The post-credit scene was an interesting touch to the franchise. It introduced the ghost of Lobster Johnson, a costumed vigilante who appears in a flashback earlier in the movie, and also one more character, an immortal warrior known as Koshi the Deathless. The movie was very keen on the franchise, and their thoughts were already up towards a second or even a third movie, which can be seen by the introduction of these 3 characters to the Hellboy cinematic universe, with the first movie being the one to clear the path for several stories to be told, all adapted in their own way straight from the comics, in the same way that the Wild Hunt storyline formed the basis for most of the script of Hellboy. However, with the movie failing right on its face, we have yet to see any news about a potential sequel being thought about. Hellboy sequel is unlikely.
Homework.
Despite all the preparations made for a follow-up movie, as of right now, it seems highly unlikely that the 2019 Hellboy reboot movie will ever see a sequel. The movie was torn apart by the critics, who described the film as horrible and a chore to sit through. Few rough words no one wants to hear about their work. Audiences were equally unimpressed, with the film earning far less than its projected opening weekend payout of $16 to $20 million, thus making the $50 million Hellboy reboot a bomb by any reasonable standards. Neil Marshall on a Hellboy sequel.
And we are the ones who bump back.
For the first time since the 2019's ill-fated Hellboy reboot, director Neil Marshall returned to the horror genre with The Reckoning. For Marshall, who launched his directorial career in the early 2000s with the projects like Dog Soldiers and now the classic The Descent, Hellboy, which was not a sequel to the 2 movies directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Ron Perlman, the lead role was given to David Harbour as the title demon. This movie was also Marshall's first feature in a 9 years break, during which he only directed a few episodes of Westworld, Hannibal, and particularly Game of Thrones. Yet Hellboy under his helm landed with a loud thud, both at the box office and with critics. Marshall told Den of Geek that he took the assignment to direct the movie purely as means to get back into directing features after such a long break. He also added that when he initially approached about Hellboy, the idea was to create more of a straight horror version of the character, which was created by comic writer-artist Mike Mignola in 1993. A Nazi-summoned demonic entity who becomes a semi-heroic paranormal investigator on Earth. As he said that, the whole idea appealed to him, while also getting a chance of doing a big feature. Thus, he jumped without any hesitation towards the whole project. However, he said that he should have made a wiser decision, which would have only been based purely on whether the script was any good. And according to him, this is where the movie started to crumble. the script was never any good, and that there was only so much he could do to fix that issue. And the whole movie's flop can be based towards the confusion about what kind of movie it was supposed to be, with the lead character serving that purpose while also catching the essence of things, being the center of it all. However, as Marshall said, the producers did not care much about all of this, and their input was so little, not weighing in the horror genre Neil suggested, despite his experience in that field in the past. Thus, as he called it, he was only brought there so the producers could tell someone what to do, with him not being allowed to touch the script, not even a bit. A move that brought the movie to a complete disaster, a mess, a deeply unpleasant experience for him. So, from his point of view, there is not even a slight chance of a sequel happening, with only hints to it being the previously mentioned setups from the first movie, or a follow-up of some kind. David Harbour on a Hellboy sequel.
There are two movies that have gone.
The titular character, played by David Harbour, says that he doesn't think that there will be a sequel after the movie's critical and financial disappointment. He acknowledged the positive reactions he has received about the movie, but ultimately accepts that the majority of people were not happy with the movie, putting down any hope of a Hellboy 2 featuring his take on the horned hero. Thus, while the beginning may be the end of a movie franchise, the Hellboy character is not going away anytime soon. The Dark Horse Comics continue to run stories about the character, with the most recent issue being released on the 19th of June 2019, with more comics bound to release in the near future. The return of Big Red on the silver screen is anything but a welcome one, or a worthy successor to the original movies, and besides, there are always Guillermo del Toro's 2 movies. So maybe the franchise can pick up on that sometime in the future. Who knows? Only time will tell. Release date.
They warned us that something was coming.
Putting everything aside, assuming that Lionsgate continues to maintain faith in the Hellboy franchise, the soonest we might expect a sequel would probably be sometime in 2023, which gives the franchise a 2-year turnaround, a standard amount of time for a movie of this genre to be sorted out. So any announcement regarding a sequel would have to be confirmed quickly by the end of this year, thus staying within the threshold. Given the introduction of Koshi the Deathless, it seems like the sequel would be based on the graphic novel Darkness Falls, a storyline which saw Hellboy trapped in the world of Russian mythology by the witch Baba Yaga, but also forced to fight her servants, including the one and only Koshi the Deathless, the champion. However, not to be the bringer of bad news, but sadly, it appears that Big Red is doomed to be cast back into the cinematic pit rather than headline a major superhero franchise. On a related note, tell us down in the comments below, what are your thoughts about the first movie? Did you like it or not? And what are your hopes for a potential sequel? And also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.